Welcome back to the Nikki Clarke Show. The show is about conversations that matter. And I'm always so thrilled to meet people from all walks of life, all around the globe, who are movers and shakers in their own right, trailblazers, and just people who are making a difference, a positive impact in the world. And I'm super excited to welcome for the second time an amazing woman. She is a film director, producer, writer, and she's the founder and CEO of Caribbean Tales Media Group. So please, without further ado, I welcome Frances Ann Solomon to the show. Welcome, Frances Ann.
Thank you, Nikki.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And I have to say again, I love the piece that you have adorning your lovely face. That is lovely. I like that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, there's a flurry of activity going on right now with the Caribbean Tales Film Festival in its 16th year. That is huge. But, Frances Ann, I would really love to know more about the woman behind the movie. Tell us a little bit about your background leading up to what you're doing today. How did it start?
Well, thank you. And I'm very excited about our Sweet 16. Who would have known that we would get here? You never think these things are going to happen, right? Yeah. Time is going to pass, 20 years is going to pass, and then, oh my God, it's just, it's unbelievable, to be honest. I would never have thought 16 years ago that I'd be here, doing this festival, and what has kind of grown out of it. So, well, I was born in England. If you want to go all the way back,
yeah.
I was born in England. My parents were from Trinidad, and so I was born into what is known as the Windrush Generation, which was that first and second generation of Caribbean people who went to England in the 50s and 60s.
Yes.
And so that has a special connection with me. And now we have a festival there called the Windrush Film Festival. And I feel like that moment in time means a lot to me, because it was a moment in time when the Caribbean and Africa actually became independent.
Yes.
And so I always call myself a child of independence, because it's a bit like being born before and after the end of apartheid, because our parents grew up in a colonial dispensation. All their rulers were white. Everything, their world was circumscribed by colonial values, realities, and
yes.
white people. But when you were born post-independence in the Caribbean, or grew up, which I did, I grew up in Trinidad for the most part, then you grew up with Black people being leaders, and our teachers were Black, our points of reference were Black people, and that is a very different reality. Do you know what I mean? So that's why, and you believe that things are possible because you don't know anything else.
Absolutely.
In a way that people who are born before that kind of come to learn that certain things are possible. They dream of it, but you take it for granted. So I call myself a child of independence. And then I grew up, my father and my grandfather were involved in the independence movements and were diplomats, traveling the world. So I also grew up with kind of a global vision of the Caribbean, which is right, because people in the Caribbean came from all over the place. They came from Europe and Africa and India and all kinds of places, and so growing up with that kind of global vision, which I think the young people now kind of take for granted, because they have the internet and travel is so much easier. But the reality is that a lot of us, growing up in the Caribbean, a lot of people who come from the Caribbean have double and triple passports. There are huge populations of Caribbean people all over the world, but especially in North America, in Europe, in Africa. I mean, it's extraordinary the way that we travel. And that, I think, goes back to that initial journey, that we were forced to undertake. I believe there's always that restlessness in our spirit. So yeah, and then I went to university here. And then I went back to England as a British citizen, and I made a career at the BBC. I was lucky that I went to England at a point in time when there was a kind of racial reckoning, not unlike what's happening now. There were riots. Black people were in England were rioting, protesting oppression. And so there was a real sense that they were looking for people to work in organizations, and I got a job at the BBC and worked my way up. And so I had a career at the BBC as I was trained there, and then I worked as a producer, and then as an executive producer in drama. And then you know what? It all shut down. At the end of the 90s, all that, multiculturalism that gave birth to Spike Lee, and here gave birth to, Clement Virgo, and in England gave birth to me, and all kinds of things were happening in the 90s. Just went, whoop, and we went into the dark ages again. Isn't that, if I had known 25 years ago in the 90s when I was, fighting racism and building beautiful programs with the BBC, that it would all disappear, and then we would have to start again, in 2020, with the murder of a man called George Floyd. I don't know what I would have thought. I would have thought that I was in a science fiction movie, that it wasn't real, So it's been difficult over the last sort of 20 years. I want back my 20 years. I feel I'm not the only person, who feels like, give me back. Look at the time that you've taken out of our lives, because of racism, not to mention sexism.
Yes.
It's a real thing. It's terribly, and it's interesting now, George Floyd was murdered, and suddenly the institutions are waking up. These places are racist, and they're changing, and all power to them. I'm very pleased. I support them. I cheer them on. I'm on their side. I'm really happy that these changes are happening. But want back my 20 years.
For sure. Yeah. But you brought up something that I'd love to kind of explore a little bit more, where your own personal challenges, if you can share as candidly as you wish to, about your experiences with anti-Black racism and even sexism as an emerging director in the early days, or even now, if it still occurs. What was that like for you? Can you give us an example?
Well, what I'll say is that growing up in the Caribbean, in a predominantly Black environment, and also I came from a very middle class background. My parents were well off. My father was a lawyer, and I went to what was called, to a good school, a girls' school. Like a lot of extraordinary women have come out of that school. For example, the current president of Trinidad and Tobago, she went. So, we're very proud of that school. But it was a school where the principal was a Black woman, and we were being trained to be professionals. So coming out of that kind of environment, which was quite unique, I believe, and going into the world, racism and sexism seemed so aberrant to me. I could not get my head around them when I came up against it full force. It always seemed to me to be absurd and ridiculous and wrong, very, very wrong. So right off the top, I was fighting. I never tried to fit in, and I never tried to accommodate racism or sexism. I would say that had its pluses and its minuses. For example, it had its pluses because I haven't given up, despite everything, and I kept going, and I did achieve certain things, The minuses are, of course, that, if you have a big mouth in those kinds of situations, you get punished for it. And so I paid a price for being, always vocal, even if I didn't open my mouth. I remember on one occasion, somebody saying to me, you are very disruptive. And I said, I haven't said anything. And they said, oh, you don't have to say anything. I can see it in your eyes. Which, what do you do with that? So that was so traumatizing to me. I can't even begin to tell you. And over the years, it chips away at your confidence, or it chips away at your resilience, or it chips away. I don't think I have less confidence, actually, but I think that it chips away maybe at your sanity, to be honest. It chips away at something and leaves you hurt and wounded in ways that you wish you weren't. Because the discrimination is very real, and I could go on. I mean, there's, as you can imagine, we all have a million stories of the things that have happened to us as a result of this ridiculous prejudice, and the ways in which our lives have been curtailed or damaged. But the good thing, I feel, is that I'm not done yet. I've seen people killed by racism. I've seen people die of racism. A lot of our leaders died before they were able to achieve what they wanted or come to voice, or they just died, they were killed. Yeah. So I consider myself very, very fortunate that I'm still here, I'm still standing, and I still have stories to tell, Yeah,
16 years later, and the stories continue. And what you're doing, you've tied in destinies of so many people with your dream. So it is really a blessing that you have created for many of us to just keep going, to have that message that giving up is not an option. And really excited to be part of what you have achieved in this film festival. So can you tell us a little bit about the Caribbean Film Festival, Caribbean Tales Film Festival, and a little bit of the highlights that we can kind of look forward to this year?
Well, our programming is, I'm not sure what that sound is, but our programming is unparalleled. We have an amazing programming team. So we have over 50 films that we're showing. We always have screenings and discussions with panelists and filmmakers. And because of the pandemic, again, it's been a blessing in disguise, really, because it's allowed us to reach a much wider audience. This is the second year that we're online, we're virtual, completely virtual. And so what it has given us is a global audience for our festivals. And now we have 3 festivals. I'm not sure that you're aware, but we have the Windrush Caribbean Film Festival,
right,
which is based in England, which, as I said, is close to my heart because I myself am a child of the Windrush Generation, those intrepid travelers who went to England in the 50s and 60s and who took within their culture. They took, carnival and steel pan and all their joy, and they survived so much. And then we have Caribbean Tales International Film Festival, which we launched. Windrush is going on now until the end of August, and the focus of this year's Windrush Film Festival is actually Carnival. So we have films about Carnival, discussions about Carnival, workshops on Carnival arts. And then Caribbean Tales is bigger and better than ever.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen our trailer, but it's unbelievable. We have over 50 films screening, and the media launch was a couple of days ago. And the festival itself will be in September. So don't miss it. And then we opened with on the media launch with a lovely discussion with Charles Officer, who of course made Akila's Escape, and Donisha Prendergast, being interviewed together about their amazing production. And then also we have our incubator program. That is an lab where we give creators an opportunity to hone their skills in developing global content from the Caribbean and its diaspora, meaning, that, as I said, the Caribbean diaspora is so wide.
Yes.
So this year, we're in our 12th year of the incubator program, which again just seems unbelievable. And then later on in the year, in October, we've got our Cinefam Film Festival. And Cinefam is the festival that we set up a few years ago that tells the stories of women of color creators specifically, because I felt that that was something, again, that's what I am. And I feel I wanted to provide a platform for the voices of women of color, because it's our time, it's our time.
Yes, yes, I completely agree with you. That is outstanding. So 3 film festivals running
Concurrently.
Fantastic. So the Caribbean Tales Film Festival is in the 16th year. The incubator is in the 12th year. Is that what you said? Okay. And then the
Windrush is we're the second year. We started
year.
last year, and this year we have our second year. So proud that we are the incredibly fortunate beneficiaries of funding from the Arts Council of England and the British Film Institute, as well as the National Lottery of England. So that's been very exciting also to see that growth.
Yes.
And then Cinefam is now in its 5th year.
Excellent, excellent. So did you want to acknowledge some of the sponsors that you have?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think living here in Canada now, we're so fortunate. I have to thank Telefilm Canada for all of their support of the work that I've been doing and that I continue to do. And then also the government of Canada also, who, aren't you glad you live in Canada right now?
I love being a Jamaican Canadian. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, like the pandemic has devastated the world, and we in Canada have been able to be comfortable and save a lot of us as a result of the support of our government. So yeah, so and keep working. We've been able to work right through the pandemic as a result of support from the government. So I really want to acknowledge.
Very grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent, excellent. So Francis Ann, how has your life been transformed? This dream that you had has taken on its own entities, not even one, it's 3 running concurrently. How do you feel about that? How has that changed your life?
Well, prior to coming back to Canada in 2000, I was a program maker. I was a film director. I still am. And over the years, I have continued to make films. We made Lord Have Mercy in the early noughties. I made a movie called A Winter Tale. We had documentary series that we made for Bravo. And of course, I made most recently Hero, inspired by the extraordinary life of Mr. Ulrich Cross, which has done really well also. But it's been difficult to tell stories from a Black perspective over the years here. And so, now that there are these opportunities, I'm hoping that, I'm hoping that we'll be able to create more stories, actually create content.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm looking forward to.
Excellent. All right. Well, how can people connect with you if they want to, submit one of their work, or maybe they want to volunteer, sponsor? How can they do that?
So go to our websites, which is CaribbeanTalesFestival.com, and you can definitely log in there, connect with us through there, or you can email us at CaribbeanTales@gmail.com. All our shows are going to be broadcast on our proprietary VOD platform, which is Caribbean Tales TV.
Mm-hmm.
So if you doodle across to CaribbeanTalesTV.com, you can see all the shows that are going to be upcoming across all the other festivals. Yeah, and we'll see you online. We'll see you in the virtual space.
In the virtual space. Well, I thank you so much for blessing us today and sharing a little bit of your background and what is yet to come. So congratulations on all your success. I'm glad to be part of it as a show sponsor. And again, I wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much, Nikki, and thank you for everything that you do for our community.
It's a pleasure. All right, Francis Ann Sullivan, the amazing film director, producer, writer, and founder, CEO of Caribbean Tales Media Group. I thank you. Bye for now.
Bye.
The Nikki Clarke Show, transforming lives one story at a time. If you would like to be a guest or become a part of our live studio audience, or even to become a sponsor, just go to www.nikkiClarkenetwork.com.